6 weeks ago, I started a project that would be so tall, I literally needed to hire scaffolding just to complete it, and it would eventually end in disaster. I've been watching and building Knex roller coasters on and off for almost 15 years, but my biggest memory as a kid was watching Coaster Crazy 10, his 20-foot recreation of Kingda Ka. Unfortunately, as a kid, I was never able to get enough Knex to even build a 10-foot coaster, and it wasn't until 10 years later that I rediscovered my love for building Knex roller coasters. I started making content online about them. Then, in 2022, I decided to have a go at building a tall roller coaster. I ended up building a 14.5-foot tall recreation of Kingda Ka, but it wasn't until 2023 that I would start the project that would rival the very first build I ever saw online, the one that inspired me to start building in the first place. And mine was going to be a 20-foot tall recreation of top Thrill Dragster. So I had to begin planning my build. I put together a plan to build every section of the coaster indoors over the course of almost 7 weeks. The very first thing I did was use Tinkercad to design a 3D printed custom train. Of course, basing my model on the real Top Thrill Dragster train. And after just 1 week, we had a fully working custom 3D printed train. And now it was time to move on to the first stage of building. The base was incredibly important as it had to support the weight of almost 40,000 pieces of Knex, resting on just 3 points of contact with the floor. Then I had to make sure that the track connecting the launch to the tower was strong enough to take the force of an almost 500-gram custom 3D printed train, which ended up at a top speed of over 30 miles an hour. So I reinforced the track with 5 layers of stiff grey rods and 3 layers of blue tubing. Once the base was complete, it was time to get to work on the middle section with the iconic downwards twist. This didn't take nearly as long as the base, as it was just a case of copying the structure and building a 90-degree turn on one side and a 270-degree turn on the other side. Then came probably the most important part, the very top. Once this top section was completed, I measured all 3 pieces, and to my surprise, the total height came to exactly 20 feet. With the end of the project in sight, I needed to order some scaffolding in order to assemble this beast outside. And with a rental cost of £157, I really couldn't afford this project to fail. With the scaffolding ordered, I now had a deadline for this project. I had to finish building, testing, and film everything that I needed for my video before they came to collect the scaffolding at the end of the weekend. And at the time of ordering the scaffolding, it was already Friday, so I ended up staying up late into the night finishing off the launch track and the brake run. This ended up taking me until 3 AM, and I had to be up at 8 AM the next day to make sure I was awake for the scaffolding. And then the day was finally here. In the morning, I realised that the scaffolding was going to be a 2-man job. I simply couldn't put it up on my own, so I did the only reasonable thing that all 25-year-olds do, and asked my mum for help. Over the next 6 hours, we worked together to build the scaffolding. My mum would pass me up pieces of the scaffolding from beneath, and I would build my way up, building the coaster piece by piece along with it. And when the scaffolding was too high for me to reach, we would attach a piece of string and hoist up the pieces. And finally, after 7 weeks of hard work and over 8 hours of putting this thing together, this project was finally complete.